She could have run. She could have saved herself. But she didn't. She stood there on those train tracks, barking desperately at a stranger, begging him to understand what her voice couldn't say in words. Please, save my baby. This is the story of a mother's love so powerful it stopped a man in his tracks. A love so fierce it refused to give up even when death was literally racing toward them. And what happened in the next 60 seconds will break your heart before it heals it. Let me take you to that morning. It was one of those gray, cold days where everyone's in a hurry to get somewhere warm. The train station was busy, people rushing past each other, lost in their own worlds. The usual morning chaos. Nothing out of the ordinary. Except for one thing. Near the tracks, barely visible in the early morning shadows, there was a burlap sack. The kind used for potatoes or grain. Rough, dirty, thrown carelessly onto the gravel like garbage. And if you listened carefully, if you stopped for just a moment, you could hear something coming from inside it. A sound that didn't belong there. A whimper. Tiny. Desperate. Afraid. Inside that sack were 2 lives. A golden retriever mother, probably 3 or 4 years old, and her puppy. Her baby. Barely 8 weeks old. Small enough to fit in your hands. Both of them had been stuffed into that sack, tied shut, and abandoned on active train tracks like they were nothing. Like their lives meant absolutely nothing to whoever put them there. Can you imagine that level of cruelty? Can you wrap your mind around looking at a mother dog and her baby, and deciding the best thing to do is throw them away to die? Not just abandon them somewhere, but actively place them in harm's way. On train tracks, where their death would be certain and horrific. The mother had managed to tear through part of the sack. Her paws were bleeding from the effort. She'd clawed and bitten and fought with everything she had until finally, she made a hole big enough to squeeze through. And the moment she got free, the very first thing she did wasn't run to safety. It was turn back and try to get her puppy out. But the opening wasn't big enough. The puppy was stuck inside, tangled in the rough fabric, crying in confusion and fear. And the mother, she pushed her nose against the sack, she pawed at it, she tried everything she could think of. But it wasn't enough. She couldn't get him out alone. That's when she heard it. Footsteps. Someone walking nearby. And in that moment, this beautiful, desperate mother made a choice that would change everything. She ran toward the sound. Toward a human. Toward the very species that had just tried to kill her and her baby. The man walking by was nobody special. Just an ordinary guy heading to work. Maybe 35 years old. Tired. Probably thinking about his day ahead. Definitely not expecting what was about to happen. He heard barking. Urgent, frantic barking. And then suddenly there was a dog in front of him. A golden retriever, dirty and scraped up, blocking his path. She barked again, louder this time. Then she did something that made his blood run cold. She grabbed his jacket sleeve gently in her mouth and pulled. She was trying to lead him somewhere. For a split second, he thought about pulling away. Stray dogs can be unpredictable. He didn't know if she was aggressive or sick or dangerous. But there was something in her eyes. Something that looked almost human. It was desperation. It was pleading. It was a look that said, "I need you. Please help me." So he followed. She led him toward the tracks, looking back every few steps to make sure he was still coming. And then he saw it. The burlap sack. And the small golden head poking out. A puppy so tiny and scared it was shaking violently. The man's heart stopped. Because he could hear it now. The train. That low rumble that starts in your feet and travels up your spine. The warning sound that means you have seconds, not minutes. Seconds. The mother ran to the sack and pawed at it frantically, then looked back at the man. Her message was crystal clear. I can't do this alone. You have hands. You can untie it. Please. Save my baby. The man looked at the train in the distance. Looked at the puppy trapped in the sack. Looked at the mother dog staring at him with eyes that held more hope than any creature should have to place in a stranger. And his brain screamed at him. This is insane. This is dangerous. This is not your problem. But his heart said something different. It said, that mother is begging you. She's trusting you with the most precious thing she has. And if you walk away now, you'll never forgive yourself. He ran. dropped his bag and ran toward the tracks. The mother ran with him, staying right by his side, her body tense with fear and hope and desperate prayer. The train was visible now. Not a dot in the distance. A massive metal beast barreling toward them, its horn already blaring a warning that shook the air. The man jumped down onto the tracks. The gravel shifted under his feet. The vibration from the approaching train made his teeth chatter. And the puppy, oh God, the puppy was looking right at him with these huge, terrified eyes that seemed to ask, "Are you going to save me?" His hands were shaking so badly he could barely work the knot. Whoever tied this sack had done it tight. Really tight. Like they wanted to make sure these dogs couldn't possibly escape. The train was so close now. So incredibly close. He could see the conductor's face, pale with horror, could see him pulling the emergency brake even though they both knew it was too late to stop in time. The mother was barking nonstop, a sound of pure anguish. She knew what was about to happen. She understood the danger. And she was watching her baby, unable to help, forced to trust this stranger completely. The knot finally gave way. The man grabbed the puppy, felt that small body in his hands, and turned to run. But he stumbled. The gravel, the panic, the adrenaline, something made him lose his footing and he went down on one knee. The puppy tumbled from his grip. And that's when the mother did something extraordinary. She was already on the platform, already safe. But she jumped back down, picked up her puppy by the scruff of his neck the way mother dogs do. And she ran with him in her mouth toward the edge of the platform. The man scrambled to his feet. The train was there. Right there. The wind from it was like a wall pushing against him. He threw himself toward the platform edge. Hands grabbed him. People were shouting. The mother dog jumped, her puppy still in her mouth, and someone caught them, pulled them up, and then the man was being hauled up too, his body scraping against the concrete. The train screamed past, inches from where they'd just been. The sound was deafening. The wind from it violent. And then it was gone, continuing down the tracks, the conductor probably having a heart attack in his cabin. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The man was on his hands and knees on the platform, his whole body shaking. And next to him, just a few feet away, was the mother dog. She'd set her puppy down and was frantically licking him, checking him over, making sure he was okay. The puppy was crying, confused and scared, but alive. Completely, miraculously alive. The mother dog looked up at the man. And in her eyes was something he'd never forget. It was gratitude. Pure, overwhelming gratitude. She'd asked a stranger to risk his life, and he'd said yes. She'd placed her faith in a human after humans had tried to murder her and her child. And he hadn't let her down. The man reached out slowly, his hand trembling. The mother dog didn't pull away. She leaned into his touch, her tail giving one weak wag. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. An understanding. The bond. A promise that neither of them quite understood yet, but both of them felt deeply. People crowded around them. Someone was calling emergency services. Someone else was filming on their phone. Questions were flying. Are you okay? Is the dog okay? What was that sack doing there? Did someone really abandon them there? The man didn't answer any of it. He was too focused on the two golden dogs in front of him. The mother was still checking her puppy obsessively, her nose running over every inch of him, making absolutely certain he was unharmed. And the puppy, gradually calming down, was pressing himself against his mother, seeking comfort in the only constant he'd ever known. Someone mentioned calling animal control. Someone else suggested a shelter. Well-meaning voices offering practical solutions. But the man shook his head. He was already pulling off his jacket, wrapping it around the puppy who was still shivering. He looked at the mother dog and said quietly, almost to himself, "You came to me for help. I'm not going to abandon you now." The walk to his apartment was surreal. He carried the puppy wrapped in his jacket. The mother dog walked right beside him, never more than a step away from her baby. She was limping slightly, her paws torn up from clawing through that sack. But she didn't slow down. Didn't complain. Just stayed focused on her puppy, her eyes constantly checking to make sure he was still there, still safe. Neighbors stared as they passed. The man probably looked insane, carrying a puppy, followed by a bedraggled dog, both of them covered in dirt and looking like they'd been through war. Which, in a way, they had. When they got inside his apartment, the man set the puppy down gently on the bathroom floor. The safest room. Easy to clean. The mother immediately lay down next to her baby, curling her body around him protectively. The puppy burrowed into her fur, finally feeling safe enough to close his eyes. The man watched them for a moment, this perfect picture of maternal love, and felt tears burning in his eyes. He'd never seen anything like this. The way she looked at her baby. The way she'd risked everything twice to save him. First by coming to a stranger for help. Then by jumping back into danger when he fell. He got to work. Filled bowls with water and set them down. The mother lifted her head, looked at the water, then at the man. She was clearly desperately thirsty, but she didn't move. Not until the man gently pushed the bowl closer and said, "It's okay. It's for you. You're safe now." She drank then, long and deep, but even while drinking she kept one paw on her puppy, maintaining contact. When she was done, she nosed the puppy awake and guided him to the second bowl. He was so small he could barely reach it, so she lay down next to the bowl so he could drink while leaning against her. The man called his work and quit for the day. Actually, he might have quit for the week. He couldn't remember exactly what he said. Something about an emergency. About needing time. His boss probably thought he was crazy, but he didn't care. These two needed him right now more than any spreadsheet ever would. He researched frantically on his phone. What do you feed a mother dog and puppy? What medical care do they need? How do you help traumatized animals? The information was overwhelming, but he absorbed everything he could. Then he made a list and headed to the pet store, leaving the door cracked so he could hear if anything went wrong. The mother dog watched him leave with worried eyes, but she didn't try to follow. She stayed right where she was, wrapped around her baby, keeping him safe. When the man came back loaded with supplies, food, beds, toys, blankets, the mother dog's tail wagged. Just a little. But it was there. The first sign that maybe, just maybe, she was starting to believe this nightmare might actually be over. He set up everything carefully. Soft beds in the corner. Food and water stations. A little area with puppy pads. He tried to make it as comfortable as possible, though he had no idea if he was doing it right. He'd never had a dog before. Never really thought about it. And now he had two who desperately needed him to figure it out fast. That first night was rough. The puppy cried constantly, those heartbreaking sounds that puppies make when they're scared and confused. But the mother was there, always there, licking him soothingly, keeping him warm, letting him know he wasn't alone. And the man stayed too. He brought his pillow and blanket into the bathroom and slept on the floor near them, wanting them to know they had backup. That they weren't fighting this alone anymore. Around 3 in the morning, something beautiful happened. The man woke to a wet nose sniffing his face. The mother dog was standing over him, looking at him with those soulful eyes. And then, slowly, deliberately, she licked his cheek once. Just once. It was a thank you. A real, genuine thank you from a mother who understood that this stranger had saved her entire world. The man reached up and gently scratched behind her ears. And for the first time since he'd met her, the mother dog relaxed. Really relaxed. Her body softened. Her breathing slowed. And after a moment, she lay down next to him, close enough that he could feel her warmth, and closed her eyes. The next morning, the man took them both to the vet. The receptionist's eyes widened at their story. The vet came out personally, his face serious and kind. He examined them both carefully, gently, talking to them the whole time in that soothing voice good vets have. The mother had torn pads on her paws, some scrapes and bruises, and was underweight. The puppy was also underweight, had some mild dehydration, and was generally in rough shape. But miraculously, nothing worse. No broken bones. No internal injuries. Just the scars of neglect and cruelty, which, the vet said quietly, would heal with time and love. The vet also confirmed what the man had suspected. She was absolutely the puppy's mother. You could see it in how she interacted with him. The constant grooming. The protective hovering. The way she'd position her body between him and anything she perceived as threatening, even the very gentle vet trying to help. When the vet gave them their shots, the mother dog let him do whatever he needed to her without complaint. But when he went to give the puppy his injection, she whined in distress. The man instinctively moved closer, putting his hand on her head, and whispered, "It's okay, Mama. He's helping. I promise." And incredibly, she settled. She trusted him. This man she'd known for less than 24 hours, she trusted his word that her baby would be okay. That level of faith, after everything she'd been through, was staggering. The vet pulled the man aside before they left and said something important. That mother dog is 1 in a million. What she did, coming to you for help, that's not normal animal behavior. She assessed the situation, recognized she needed human assistance, and overcame her fear to ask for it. That's remarkable intelligence and problem-solving ability. You've got something really special here. The man looked over at the mother dog, who was gently herding her puppy toward the door, ready to go back to what she now apparently considered home. And he thought, yeah, I know. I really know. He named her Hope. Because that's what she'd had when she ran to him. Hope that not all humans were cruel. Hope that someone would care enough to help. Hope that her baby would get to live and grow and have the life he deserved. And she'd placed all that hope in a stranger's hands. The puppy he named Lucky. Because if anyone had ever been lucky, it was this little guy. Lucky that his mother was so fierce and smart. Lucky that she found the right person. Lucky that the timing worked out by literal seconds. Lucky to be alive at all. The first week with them was an adjustment. The man had to completely reorganize his life around these two. His small apartment suddenly felt even smaller with a large dog and an energetic puppy. There were accidents. There were chewed shoes. There were sleepless nights. But there were also miracles. Small ones that happened every single day. The first time Lucky wagged his tail at him. The first time Hope ate without constantly checking to make sure Lucky was getting enough. The first time Lucky played with a toy instead of cowering from it. Hope was an incredible mother. Patient beyond belief. When Lucky got too rowdy, she'd gently but firmly pin him down until he calmed. When he was scared, she'd curl around him completely. When he was learning to navigate the apartment, she'd walk slowly beside him, letting him build confidence. And she was teaching him something else too. She was teaching him to trust the man. Lucky would watch how Hope interacted with their human. How she'd lean into his touch. How she'd wag her tail when he came home. How she'd bring him her puppy when Lucky was scared, like she was saying, "It's okay, you can trust him too." Slowly, Lucky started to believe it. Started to come to the man on his own. Started to climb into his lap for cuddles. Started to greet him at the door with his tiny puppy bark. And every time Lucky showed trust, Hope would look at the man with something that looked remarkably like pride. 2 months in, the man realized he couldn't imagine his life without them. His apartment was messy. His schedule was complicated. His expenses had increased dramatically. But he was happier than he'd ever been. Because he had purpose now. He had these two souls depending on him. He had Hope's trusting eyes and Lucky's playful energy. He had a family. Hope was healing beautifully. Her paws had recovered. Her weight was back up. Her coat, once dull and matted, now shone like spun gold. She was stunning. A gorgeous golden retriever in her prime. But more than her physical recovery, it was her emotional healing that amazed him. She smiled now. That classic golden retriever smile where their mouth opens and their eyes crinkle and you can just feel the joy radiating from them. She played, which he suspected she hadn't done in a very long time. She'd chase toys, splash in puddles during walks, do that adorable play bow that dogs do when they want to engage. But she never, not even for a second, neglected Lucky. He was always her priority. If they were playing and Lucky needed her, she'd immediately stop and go to him. If someone new came around, she'd position herself between Lucky and the stranger until she decided they were safe. She was mom first, always, and everything else second. Lucky was growing like a weed. His paws were huge, promising he'd be a big dog someday. His personality was emerging too. He was curious, friendly, a little clumsy, and absolutely devoted to his mother and the man who'd saved them both. He'd learned that the world wasn't all scary. That hands meant pets, not pain. That food came regularly. That when you cried, someone came. That love was real and constant and dependable. All the things every puppy should know but that Lucky had almost never gotten the chance to learn. The man took them to the park regularly. People would stop constantly to admire them. Two golden retrievers, clearly bonded, both stunning and friendly. They'd ask the usual questions. Are they related? Yes, mother and son. Where did you get them? And the man would tell the story. About the train tracks. About Hope begging for help. About the last-second rescue. Every single person who heard the story had the same reaction. Tears. Anger at whoever had abandoned them. And overwhelming admiration for Hope's courage and intelligence. Some people would kneel down and hug Hope, telling her she was a hero. And Hope, sweet Hope, would wag her tail and lean into them, accepting their love like she'd finally learned she deserved it. One day at the park, they met a woman. She had a rescue dog too, a scruffy terrier mix with a similar story of abandonment and survival. The dogs sniffed each other curiously while the humans talked. And as they talked, the man realized something. This woman understood. She got what it meant to save a life and have that life save you right back. They started meeting regularly for walks. The dogs became friends. And slowly, carefully, so did the humans. She'd hear Lucky bark and smile knowingly. She'd see Hope's protective hovering and nod in recognition. She didn't need explanations because she'd lived her own version of this story. 6 months after the rescue, the man and woman were spending most of their free time together. It wasn't really planned. It just happened naturally. Because when you're both people who chose compassion, who saw suffering and decided to do something about it, you speak the same language. Lucky was getting big now, lanky and teenage awkward the way young dogs are. Hope was in her prime, healthy and happy and finally able to just be a dog instead of constantly being in survival mode. And the man, he was different too. More patient, more present, more connected to the world around him. One evening, the woman asked him something. She said, "Do you ever think about who abandoned them? Do you wonder why?" The man was quiet for a moment, watching Hope and Lucky play wrestling in the grass, their joy so pure and uncomplicated. Then he said, I used to think about it all the time. The anger would eat me up. But now I think if it hadn't happened, they wouldn't have found me. I wouldn't have found them. And none of us would have this. So in some weird way, I'm almost grateful for that terrible person's terrible choice, because it led to something beautiful. The woman smiled and took his hand. And in that moment, under the fading sunlight, with two rescue dogs playing nearby, something shifted. Something that would eventually become love, though neither of them could quite name it yet. A year after the rescue, the man and woman moved in together. They found a house with a big backyard. Room for 2 large dogs and all their toys and energy. Room for a family that kept growing in ways they hadn't expected. Hope loved the yard. She'd lay in the sun for hours, Lucky sprawled next to her, both of them perfectly content. Sometimes the man would watch them from the window and marvel at the transformation. From terrified, abandoned dogs on train tracks to this. Lazy afternoons. Safety. Lucky was almost full-grown now, though still younger and more energetic than his mother. But he'd learned everything she had to teach him. How to trust. How to love. How to be brave. And most importantly, how to know he was home. The bond between Lucky and Hope was something special. They were never more than a few feet apart. They ate near each other. They slept curled together. They played constantly. She'd taught him that family means you never give up on each other, even when things are scary. That you protect each other. That love is shown through action. And Lucky had given her something too. He'd given her a reason to keep going when she might have given up. Because even in that sack, even knowing they were both about to die, Hope had fought to get free because she had to save her baby. Lucky had made her brave. Had made her run to a stranger and trust when she had every reason not to trust. Had made her jump back onto those tracks when she was already safe. They'd saved each other. Over and over again. And they continued to save each other every day. The man and woman got married 2 years after the rescue. And of course, Hope and Lucky were in the wedding. Hope walked down the aisle with them, proud and regal. Lucky was the ring bearer, or tried to be until he got distracted by all the attention and had to be gently guided back on track. The wedding photographer captured an incredible moment. The four of them, human and canine, all together. And if you looked closely, you could see it in everyone's eyes. That same understanding. That same gratitude for finding each other. That same knowledge that they were exactly where they were supposed to be. People shared that photo everywhere. It went viral. News outlets picked up the story. Hope and Lucky became famous in a small way, their rescue story touching millions of hearts. The man gave interviews where he'd always emphasize the same thing: I'm not a hero. Hope is the hero. She saved her baby. She saved me too. I just showed up. But everyone who heard the story knew the truth. They'd all saved each other. 3 years after the rescue, something wonderful happened. The woman was pregnant, and Hope seemed to know before anyone else did. She became extra gentle around the woman, would rest her head on her belly, would stay close, protective, the same way she was with Lucky. When the baby came, Hope was incredibly careful. She'd sniff the tiny human gently, her tail wagging slowly, reverently. And then she'd look at Lucky as if to say, we have to protect this one too. This is family now. Lucky, young and exuberant, had to learn to be gentle. But Hope taught him, the same way she taught him everything else. And watching them both carefully navigate around this tiny, fragile human, treating the baby with such obvious love and care, made the man cry more than once. His daughter would grow up with the most incredible role models. A mother dog who'd shown that love means sacrifice. That you protect those who can't protect themselves. That you never give up, even when things seem hopeless. That courage is being scared but doing the right thing anyway. 4 years after the rescue, the man took Hope and Lucky back to the train station. The woman and their daughter came too. They stood safely away from the tracks, watching trains come and go. And the man told his daughter the story. How her family came to be. How love sometimes finds you in the darkest moments. How showing up for someone, even when it's scary, can change everything. Hope and Lucky sat calmly, watching the trains without fear. The past was just the past now. It had no power over them anymore. They had their family. They had their home. They had everything they needed. The little girl hugged Hope and said, "You're the bravest doggy in the whole world." And Hope's tail wagged, that beautiful golden tail, and she licked the child's face gently. Because she wasn't brave, not really. She was just a mother who loved her baby enough to ask for help. But if this tiny human thought she was brave, well, she'd accept that love. 5 years after the rescue, Hope started slowing down. She was getting older. Her muzzle had gone gray. She didn't play as roughly anymore. Preferred long naps in sunny spots. But her eyes were still bright. Her love still fierce. And Lucky, now a full-grown adult dog himself, was incredibly gentle with her. He'd lay quietly beside her, bring her toys, check on her constantly. The roles had shifted slightly. Lucky was protecting his mother now, the way she'd protected him, making sure she had the comfiest spots, the best treats, the most attention. And Hope would look at him with such obvious pride, this baby she'd saved who'd grown into such a good, loving soul. The man watched their bond with constant amazement. This was what love looked like in its purest form. Selfless, constant, unbreakable. 6 years after the rescue, the family had grown even more. Another baby, a house full of life and noise and chaos and joy. And through it all, Hope and Lucky remained the steady heartbeat of the home. The reminder of where it all started, of what mattered most. People would ask the man sometimes if he ever regretted that decision, if he ever wished he just kept walking that day, called someone else, stayed safe. And he'd look at his family, his wife who he'd met because of these dogs, his children who were learning compassion from them every day. Hope and Lucky curled up together on their favorite bed. And he'd say, that was the best decision I ever made. The scariest, the most impulsive, but absolutely the best. Because that's the thing about choosing to help, about seeing suffering and deciding to do something. It's scary. It's inconvenient. It changes your entire life. But it changes it in ways you never could have imagined. In ways that make you better, fuller, more connected to what really matters. Hope had come to him begging for her baby's life. But in saving Lucky, the man had somehow saved his own future, had found his family. had discovered a capacity for love he didn't know he possessed, had learned what it means to be truly brave. Today, Hope is older, slower, grayer, but no less loved. Lucky stays close to her always, the way she once stayed close to him. The children are gentle with her, understanding in that intuitive way kids have that she's special. She's precious. She's the beginning of everything. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, the man will sit next to Hope and scratch behind her ears the way she loves. And he'll whisper, "Thank you. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for being brave enough to ask for help. Thank you for showing me what really matters." Hope will thump her tail and lean into him. Because she understands. She always has. They saved each other that day on the tracks. And they keep saving each other every single day, just by choosing to stay. To love. To be family. This story isn't just about a dramatic rescue. It's about what happens after. About the quiet, everyday heroism of showing up. Of caring. Of choosing love even when it's complicated. It's about second chances and unlikely families and the power of one moment to redirect the course of multiple lives. Somewhere out there, right now, there's another Hope. Another mother trying desperately to save her baby. Another animal suffering, scared, abandoned. And maybe you'll see them. Maybe you'll be the one they come to for help. And when that moment comes, I hope you remember this story. I hope you remember that being scared is okay. But walking away isn't. I hope you remember that the inconvenience, the fear, the risk, it's all worth it for the love you'll receive in return. Because Hope didn't just get saved that day. She saved everyone around her. Her baby. The man. The woman he'd meet. The children they'd have. Every life they'd all touch going forward. One act of courage created ripples that extended far beyond what anyone could see in that moment. That's the legacy of compassion. That's the power of choosing to help. One moment, one choice, one life saved, and everything changes. Hope and Lucky are living proof that broken things can heal, that abandoned souls can find home, that love, real love, unconditional love, can transform trauma into triumph. That family isn't always about biology. Sometimes it's about who shows up when you need them most. So the next time you see suffering, don't look away. Don't assume someone else will handle it. Be the person who stops, who listens, who acts, because you might just save more than a life. You might save a future, your own included. This is Hope and Lucky's story, but it could be yours too. All you have to do is say yes when life asks if you're brave enough to care.